one location that maybe doesn't instantly come to mind when thinking horror is that of the humble cinema. So here's an entire list dedicated to those spooky flicks that spend the majority of their runtime in a movie theatre. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 best horror movies set in a cinema. Number 10, Fade to Black. It's Dennis Christopher who stars here as Eric, an awkward-ass man who is obsessed with the medium of film, something which I'm sure all of us here cannot relate to. Rather than the socially struggling nerd who's relatable, who you root for, and who is well-meaning though, Fade to Black's main attraction is simply just a bit of a prick. The theme of movies is constantly present throughout Vernon Zimmerman's picture though, with Eric either in a movie theatre embarking on a marathon viewing or shown at his day job working at a film distribution warehouse. Managing to get himself a date with a Marilyn Monroe lookalike, Binford's descent into true madness commences when his date accidentally stands him up. From there, Eric begins on a path of bloody murder that's inspired by a slew of famed films, such as Psycho, Kiss of Death, White Heat, The Prince and the Showgirl, Dracula, and The Mummy. Not only do several of Eric's kills take place in a cinema setting as well, but Fade to Black's conclusion takes place at the iconic Mann's Chinese Theatre on Hollywood Boulevard. Number 9, The Last Showing. Filmed entirely at a very real View cinema, this picture is anchored by the ever-great Robert Englund. While Englund is best known as the delightfully deadly Freddy Krueger, here the actor delivers a far more subdued, nuanced performance as film projectionist Stewart. A fan of film in its purest fashion, Stewart is disgusted by modern filmmaking. When his job is then deemed unnecessary and he's forced to work on the concession stand, that's the final straw for this character, causing him to make his own tortured, twisted movie. Finn Jones and Emily Barrington play an unsuspecting couple out to watch a late-night showing of The Hills Have Eyes 2, and they, along with a couple of staff members, find themselves trapped in the multiplex and manipulated by Stewart. Utilizing CCTV footage and handheld cameras, the disgruntled projectionist directs traffic from afar, using his own angst and anger to become a filmmaker himself. Number 8, Nightmare Cinema. When done well, few things in horror can match a good anthology offering. At the center of Nightmare Cinema is Mickey Rourke as the mysterious projectionist. Bringing together 5 strangers at an old movie theater, Rourke's character puts on 5 vastly different pictures that showcase the group's deepest fears and darkest secrets. The directors of each short bring a different brand of horror to the table, with these short movies providing spins on famed horror staples like the slasher film Possession and ghostly goings-on. Like so many great anthology pictures, of course, all 5 entries of Nightmare Cinema end up being a tad more related and connected than we were initially led to believe. Number 7, The Tingler. Castle was famed for releasing his movies with plenty of bells and whistles accompanying them. And in the case of The Tingler, those whistles and bells meant that watching audiences had a vibrating device installed in their seats, and no, it's way too easy. I'm not going to make a joke about how cinema goers in the 50s probably went to see a movie called The Tingler, mostly to enjoy, well, the vibrating seats. I'm not doing it. Starring the legendary Vincent Price, the crux of The Tingler's plot revolves around a parasitic creature that sticks to a host's spine and feeds off fear. The more you get scared, the greater chance you have of this parasite killing you, but to get rid of this unwelcome presence, all one has to do is scream as loud as possible. Opposite Price is Philip Coolidge as Ollie Higgins, the owner of a theatre that specializes in silent films, and it's in Higgins' small cinema that so much of The Tingler takes place. Number 6, Coming Soon. Directed from the writer of 2004's Shutter and 2007's Alone, and pulling mild inspiration from The Ring, Coming Soon is based around a specific scene of a specific movie. For those unfortunate souls who watch this cursed scene, terror and death lie waiting around the corner. Helping to spread the torture and death around, a cinema worker has pirated the movie in question, circulating it around to any willing buyers in order to make a quick buck. Like the rest of the films featured on this list, a large chunk of Coming Soon's runtime is spent in the comfort, or I guess discomfort, of a movie theatre. While the picture may rely a smidge too much on formulaic jump scares, at the heart of this 08 effort is a solid story that unravels at a fitting pace before ultimately pulling the rug from under its audience with its final act reveal. Number 5, Popcorn. Popcorn is centered on a group of university students, as an all-night horror movie marathon is put on at a disused local cinema in order to raise funds for the university's film department. Wanting to put on a big show for the night, a whole host of gimmicks and tricks are served up alongside each of the pictures being screened. Of course, these things in these movies never go off without a hitch, and the proverbial spanner in the works here is a masked killer who begins to pick off the youngsters one by one. What's even more disturbing is that the paying audience believe that these deaths are merely all part of the show. Pun mildly intended, but Popcorn is very much a fun popcorn slasher that's certainly of its time, yet full of the same charm that made the 80s and 90s such a cheesily great time for this subgenre. Number 4. Porno. From Fangoria, Porno is the most recent release on this list. Set in a small town back in the 90s, Porno finds a group of 5 teenage cinema employees opting to start up a mysterious film reel once the theatre has closed for the night. For this 5, putting on this vintage X-rated picture causes all kinds of trouble for them though, as it unleashes a demonic succubus intent on seducing each member of the group. Known as Lilith, this figure takes on different forms to lull in each of its targets. Brimming with gore, impressive SFX work, and a wince-inducing penis gag, Porno serves as a brilliant horror comedy. It's also worth noting that money generated from the digital rental of Porno goes to support independent movie theaters as well. Number 3. The Final Girls. A humorous, surprisingly poignant picture that poked fun at the slasher subgenre. This technically takes place within a cinema setting, so it does count. It's just that the protagonists of this tale find themselves dropped into the middle of an actual horror film. In the opening scene, we see Max waiting for her actress mother to finish yet another audition. Desperate to shake off the Scream Queen label that has followed her since starring in Camp Bloodbath, the actress is shockingly killed in a car accident. 3 years later, on the anniversary of her mother's death, Max is convinced by her friends to attend a double feature screening of Camp Bloodbath and its follow-up. During said showing though, a fire in the theatre forces Max and her pals to seek safety by cutting through the screen itself. The twist here is that this group of youngsters finds themselves transported into the Camp Bloodbath movie. While they have to fight for survival and a return to the real world, this also gives Max a way to spend some time with her deceased mother, albeit through the visage of Amanda's character Nancy. Number 2. Anguish. Whereas some of the movies featured here revolve around films within a film, Anguish manages to go one better and deliver a story that's a film within a film within a film. Anguish opens with some moviegoers at the Rex watching a feature called The Mummy, which focuses on a mother who hypnotizes her partially blind son into going out and removing people's eyes with a scalpel. As our protagonists watch this movie, the events of the picture begin to be mirrored in the movie theater therein, all culminating in a police shootout. One of the survivors of this trauma, Patty, is taken to a hospital where she is soon visited by John, a man shot dead by the police after killing several people during the screening of The Mummy. From there though, the camera pans out to reveal that the antics of Patty, John, and the rest of The Mummy's audience were all part of another movie before Anguish then rolls its credits. Number 1. Demons. Lamberto Bava's 1985 Demons is a beauty of a cinema set horror offering. Taking place in Berlin, Cheryl is offered 2 movie tickets by an utter stranger. Managing to rope her friend in for this cinema experience, it soon becomes apparent to Cheryl that all's not quite as it seems. Not least when real life eerily begins to mimic the terrors shown in the horror movie that's screening. In a quick turnaround, one of the audience members turns into a demon, who then infects someone else, who then infects another patron, who then infects, well, you get the idea. As the dust settles, it's Cheryl and George who are left to fight off an ever-increasing number of demonic figures. Throw in a final act arrival of a helicopter crashing through the ceiling of the theatre, and Demons is one of the more bonkers cinema set films out there, and it's also one of the absolute best. By the time the movie draws to a close, Cheryl has been infected and killed, and George becomes part of a small group of survivors as Berlin gets taken over by hordes of sinister sorts.